In my previous video, I moved and reorganized my Batman toys and collectibles into a brand new display space. In doing so, I left an entire cabinet just empty, which means I'm gonna have to move some more toys in order to fill that empty space. Today, I'm thinking of shifting over my Star Trek toys. They've been building up for quite some time, and there's a lot that I still have in storage. The ones that I have on display are a bit of a mess. And again, like with the Batman collection, I want to curate, I want to fine tune it. And so that's what I'll be doing in this video. Where to bloody start?
Let's see what's out there.
The Star Trek toys that I have on display right now exist here and up there. The reason, well, one of the reasons I want to move them over to the empty cabinet right now is because the white and the oak really does sort of fit the Star Trek aesthetic. Also, the plan at the moment is to dedicate the entire bookcase to Star Trek. Whether that means spacing some of these things out or bringing stuff out of storage, well, will depend on how this ends up. Maybe a little of both.
I can tell.
So right here is one of the pitfalls of going with the affordable display options. Like I said, I love bookcases. I love these sorts of bookcases because I love the warmth of the oak veneer, fake as it is. And this is called the Austin. It was bought from Officeworks. It comes in oak, it comes in white, and it comes in black. This is also the Austin. This was bought a couple of years ago. It comes in oak and white, and black. If you go back to the Officeworks website now, it's completely oak again, for whatever reason. So yeah, lack of consistency. If I'd gone with the IKEA ones, I would have had to spend a little more. Anyway, what was my point? Oh yeah, anyway. I was doing this. Come on, there we go. Yeah, trying something a little bit different here, a little bit neater, a little bit cleaner, a little bit more fancy looking. These steel pegboard panels are from Bunnings. The fittings themselves, you know, don't cost much at all, and I'm not really afraid of drilling into the back of these things because they're actually quite sturdy, surprisingly. Yeah, looks pretty cool so far. Oh, I've set it up in this manner mainly because I want to be able to future-proof it. Later on, I'll probably remove this shelf here, especially if I've got more replica props, more phases, maybe that Klingon disruptor that I've been looking for. I'll remove this, buy another panel, put it underneath, and just expand, I guess, the weapons locker. Yeah. I'm liking how that's looking so far. You know what? I may have to come back to that. Yeah, I might need to go explore some more pegboard hooks and things. Yeah, so I've done a lot of thinking off camera, maybe a bit of a nap as well, or else I get cranky. I'm going to remove this shelf, make some more room. But that means unplugging the LEDs that I've attached to it. And so with some of these later cabinets, I actually made them a little bit modular, so they've got these little power plugs in them. However, I didn't make the hole big enough for those plugs, but that's simple enough. Pull that out. There we go. Now we can remove the shelf. Can we lift? Yes. And it's out. to compensate for all that spare room, to give a bit of room for this lower shelf here that I've got something planned for. I need to raise it up, but there's not enough holes. I need to drill more holes. Oh, did I cock that up? No, that works. That works. It's not perfect. It's like a millimetre off, but yeah, I think I said it before. I like bookcases, timber bookcases, because I can customise them however I want. Yeah, so there's a bit of versatility in some of these things. It's swings and roundabouts. Depends what you want to show off, you know, beyond books, I guess. Right, I'm liking how this looks now. Feeling a lot better, actually. Whatever was disturbing my stomach is now out the other end, but feeling a lot better, feeling a little more energetic, feeling a little more satisfied with this now. Now that it's the next day and I bought another panel, I'm actually going to need to buy some more hooks. That's for another time. But oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Oh, let's just. I'm still fiddling. Now it's got to this point, sort of through the wall that was stopping me, because that's how my mind works. If I don't get this part done in a satisfactory or good enough position, I can't move on to the rest of them because there's so much flux in or potential to keep changing things. So I've got to get one portion done, then I can go to the next one. But now I can talk about it. I'll talk about one in particular. The gold, oh, let's leave it there, the gold handle phaser and the communicator with the metal grill based on the designs from the original series. I think they're exclusive versions. They were $5 for the pair at a Sunday market. The assault phaser from Star Trek VI, that's highly sought after. I was able to find that for cheap. Type 2 phaser from The Wrath of Khan. Another highly sought after phaser, despite the fact that it looks almost identical to the one from Star Trek the Motion Picture. The only thing that defines it as being from Wrath of Khan, this tiny circle right here. Like the previous one doesn't have that circle. That's it. That's the only difference. Comes off. We've also got the laser pistol from the rejected Star Trek pilot, The Cage. So there's that. This is done by Playmates back in the 90s. There's stuff from Playmates, there's stuff from Diamond Select, tricorders. Standard, next generation tricorder, medical tricorder. We've also got the medical tricorder by Diamond Select from the original series. Now, why the medical tricorder? Well, Dr. McCoy was actually my favourite character from the original series, and also this is a tough one to find as well.
Respiration on, blood pressure on.
We've got a tribble we can scan here. Type 2 phasers from the next generation and the movies. And also, oh, this one was a long search. This is the computer console as seen on Star Trek The Next Generation, primarily seen in Captain Picard's ready room, for instance. It's a coin bank, but when you press the button...
Computer, proceed at warp 9.
From the 90s by by Thinkwave Toys, actually, and it takes so many batteries. I'm happy with this for now. Like I said, I need more hooks. I need to set it up properly, like its final form. There's a couple of things that need to be placed there properly, but I think I've got it. I can move on to the next part. So I'm recording this after the fact because while I was editing, I realized that I was so distracted by getting this right that I forgot to talk about why Star Trek. If I think back really carefully, my first exposure to Star Trek was when I was 4 years old. This was back in the 80s, and I have to admit, I actually don't know which Star Trek movie or search for Spock. And the reason why I'm not sure is because the only memory I have of it is the scene where they jettison Spock's body in the coffin. All the torpedo used in both films. And I remember recreating that at kindergarten the next day with lots of silver cardboard and glitter and just trying to create the star field. So I reckon the action figures got away from me there for after a while. It started a certain way, but then as I kept getting each piece, I kept adding to it. I already have a fair idea of what I want to do with this. We'll just see if that actually works. I'm gonna have to think through this just a little bit more, I think. Yeah, so these large dolls, these are from the late 90s by Playmates Toys. Most of them were actually from a large vintage job lot. The job lot I bought actually had like 2 Worfs, 4 Janeways, and oh, that's right, it had like 2 or 3 Captain Picards. Spock here, actually his head was on a different figure. I think it was a 2009 Star Trek Spock figure. So I had to do some swap and repairs. Counselor Troy was actually in a custom white dress uniform, but then that blue one 7 of 9 was wearing. The original version of this doll is her in the lilac jumpsuit. Still, I do want to kind of find that one at an affordable price, of course. I just like to have the original version of things, but for the time being, that works out well. I'm still deciding whether or not to open Q and put him on display. I recently bought Captain Pike. It made me really wish that there was a version of the Anson Mount Captain Pike from Discovery. Oh, I'd follow that man anywhere. I also have from the original series Scotty, which, see, he's still in box, but at the moment I'm not even sure if Spock will stay there, to be perfectly honest. If he's the only original series figure up there, I might finesse it down even more. I thought I had this figured out. Look, by the end of this video, I'll probably have rearranged this 3 or 4 times. Let's talk about the next part. Actually, I already have, sort of. Earlier in the year, I did a video about my 5 favourite and 5 frustrating toy purchases of the previous year, 2019. And I talked about the Diamond Select Star Trek figures. I was just looking for Captain Picard. There was a local seller who set up shop at one of those indoor markets, and he had one of these in pack, not exactly mint, but in pack, for $100. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, one day, stumbled across that very figure at his market stall. Sorry, let me just put this back. And yeah, all I had left was $60. Just out of the blue, I decided, why not? Let's haggle. Let's try to negotiate, which I'm not a fan of doing, so I seldom haggle. In rediscovering what places sell toys and collectibles around Adelaide, and I discovered Collectible Chaos up north. I actually had most of these for $20 each, including Captain Picard. So I bought a few more Captain Picards for $20 each. They're sealed in pack, they'll be stored away, and then I got the rest of the crew as well, including the Nemesis crew, which, or let's say First Contact, because I like those uniforms. Nemesis was absolute garbage. Anyway, a few of the rare ones I talk about in the other video as well. Yeah, one of the things I've been contemplating, that First Contact Picard is the more action hero, down to his vest version. But I kind of want a uniform version, which they've already released for Nemesis, but this was based on 3D scans. It's technically accurate, but I'm not certain about it because it doesn't actually fit the other Nemesis figures. Yeah, so there is a part of me that wants to do a custom version of this to suit the other figures. So again, that's down the track. We'll see how we go. But it would be many years later until Star Trek The Next Generation premiered in Australia, finally, in 1991, 1992, that I really sort of dove right into it. The first couple of seasons, they were on in prime time, 7:30 at night. I was there at my parents' restaurant after school, watching the show. But then, I think it was season 3 Aussie fans will be more than familiar with this. For some reason, Star Trek was then relegated to a very late night time slot. 11 PM at the earliest after the late news. Sometimes even after midnight. 9 or 10-year-old. I was allowed to stay up and watch that. When you're at that age and you're allowed to, stay up late, unlike the other kids, to watch your favourite show, it kind of makes it a little more special. Lots of dust up here that doesn't get enough attention. The Starships I have up here, they're pretty much going to stay the same, more or less. I've got stuff here from Playmates back in the 90s, including the original Enterprise, the Phoenix. I've also got a whole heap of Diamond Select stuff, of course, because they're really good replicas. High-def version of the original Enterprise. The Excelsior, as seen in Star Trek VI. The other Excelsior class here is actually the Enterprise B, battle damage version. And we've got the Enterprise E, that's the Nemesis version, because it's got more detail on it. Klingon Bird of Prey, that's so cool. Again, Star Trek VI, because it's got all the voices of General Chang, as played by Christopher Plummer, which is really cool. But amongst those, I've also got Eagle Moss, those fortnightly magazine collections that you get from the newsagent. You'll lose yourself in them trying to get every one of them, or get all your favourite ones, and you miss a week, and now I'm rambling. Anyway, this is the stuff that's on display, but I've also got stuff that's, in storage. Trying to make room for everything just doesn't happen. But the one change that I am going to make here is I'm going to put the Playmates Enterprise D back up here. So I need to make some room. Defiant down! Defiant down!
Cry havoc! And let's slip the dogs of war!
So you down here where it's safe, hey? And then let's put you up here, shall we? Yeah, you're looking deadly. Yeah. Who the f am I talking to? As I mentioned, I've still got Starships that I haven't got on display. I don't have stands for them. The battle damaged Enterprise E from Nemesis, part of a $20 job lot. The Enterprise A.
Where's that damn torpedo? He's ready, Jim! Lock it alone!
That's the Star Trek VI version. Again, this was part of another job lot. Up there I had a battle damaged version of the Enterprise B. Here's a normal version of it. There's a broken stand in here, there's no top there, so there are acrylic stands for sale on eBay, but at the same time I kind of want to be consistent with the original stands they came with. I don't mind them. Look, there are solutions, I'll figure it out at some point. Romulan Warbird. Oh, it's dusty. Still works. This is the Playmates release from the 90s. Found another phaser. Oh, that's a different colour to the one that's up there. We'll have a look at this again a bit later. Channel 9 had The Next Generation, so Channel 7 got the original series, and then they ran that late at night, 10:30, 11 o'clock after the late news. They even showed, I think it was actually on one of the milestone anniversaries, 25th anniversary or something like that, that they started showing, that they actually showed The Cage. for the first time. And that was my first exposure to the original series. They even showed, I think it was... trying different things. This is what I'm going to call the overflow and trinkets area. I've decided to move the original series Playmates figs down to this shelf now because, again, the Diamond Select shelf, I might want to do something else with that. But also the Galoob figures are down here as well, and any other sort of extra figures. We've got Picard disguised as a Romulan, Dixon Hill, and yeah, as well as the trinkets part. I've had this since, well, it says here 95. This was in the Star Trek The Next Generation show bag from the Royal Adelaide show. Look how beat up that box is. Giggity. Speaking of the show bag, I've since lost it, but here it is, bought again. This was also included in the show bag, if that can focus. Wristwatch. Has a hologram on the cover. And yeah, I had one of these as well, but was lost everything else. At one point I did consider bringing the Eagle Moss ships down to here, but now that I see how much there is in here, I'm glad I didn't, because it would have been too packed out. This was easy. This one was nice and easy. Actually, yeah. Felt good. One of my favourite little Star Trek trinkets are these Tng Combadges. Actually, they make a variety of them from various series, and I think they're wonderful. They're done by Quantum Mechanics, otherwise known as QMX, and they're quite lovely, and they're magnetic. So, you know, they have a backing with a rare earth magnet, and you just pop it on like that. It's a nice little alternative to the brooches, which have a pin that you poke through your uniform. It prevents you from creating holes in your favourite Starfleet uniform. I think they're quite lovely. But again, why Star Trek? Well, at that age, it's just really accessible and fun. So it was. The budgets were so low, but they did some amazing things with it. And when you're 9 or 10 years old, it just looks amazing. When you get older, you, like every other fan, you realise the message of hope and being better, of humanity being better. You get even older, and you realise, oh, wait a second, these stories are actually reflections of us. They were meant to be stories about us. They were metaphors, allegories, whatever. Holding up a mirror to the shit that people deal with now, and trying to make it palatable, digestible, easy to understand. We're going to skip a shelf for the time being and go straight down to the bottom because of this big bastard right here. For the last 12 months, the Playmates release of the USS Enterprise D bridge playset has been sitting on this flat pack coffee table, well, where the Batman collection is standing right now. Playsets like this don't fit on the shelves that I have because they're made for books. It's really difficult to figure stuff like this out. Hell, I've got a Legacy Edition Millennium Falcon that I would love to display, but there's nowhere to put it around here. One of the reasons I wanted to shift my Star Trek stuff to the far corner bookcase is because of this playset. It needs to be out of the way, it needs to be seen, it needs to be seen in a way that you can actually look down into the bridge as well, even though there is this panel right here. Putting it on the bottom shelf still doesn't fit because the shelf itself is 29 centimeters or something like that, whereas the playset, I think it's about 40 centimeters wide. It's awkward, it's not going to be perfect, but it'll have to do, because I really don't want to put this into storage. This is too beautiful to just hide away. Oh look, it's It's a hack. It's not pretty, but you know what? I think that'll do just fine. One of the more recent purchases, the Shuttlecraft Goddard by Playmates Toys. What was it, 1992, god damn. Hell of a bargain too, but yeah. So this hasn't had a spot anywhere yet because it's been so recent. Okay, at one point I actually had two of these. I sold one. It was missing a battery cover. I sold it because, well, I needed money at the time. Also, I already have this one. This one I found at the Brighton Sunday Market, which is basically like a car boot sale for anyone not familiar with it. Lovely, lovely old lady had it amongst her wares. Asked her how much it was. She said $15. $15. 15 Australian dollars. I mean, how could I not? Well, it's complete. All the packaging is still in there. The decals have been applied, obviously. The bag and the instructions and the decal sheet are still here. Where are you? Come on. So I think on another video, I talked about how Star Trek toys in Australia seemed like they were almost non-existent. Almost. I was a teenager in the 90s. I didn't really, you know, my pocket money wasn't going to cover any of this stuff, especially when they, you know, when they put collector's edition #1 for whatever. There it is. What I love about this, it was so complete that it still had the receipt. It still had the original receipt from when the original buyer purchased this. The 26th of March, 1994 at 3:23 p.m. Please retain this receipt for exchange or return. It was $99 back in the day. $99. I don't know, I love having this as part of it. It fascinates me, this sort of thing. This beauty still works. I might have to put some batteries in to show you. Make sure the batteries are in. It's all lit up in there, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, let's find someone. Alrighty. Put you in there. Close the door. You can see him in there, right? Cool. And now, energize. Oh my god! Alright. Come on, let's put you over here. And with Captain Picard being, you know, my sort of childhood hero, moral compass sort of character, it, again, I'm learning some of those lessons I learnt as a kid didn't really sink in until I was much older. And do the best you can, because, and at the same time, the characters that we saw, they were flawed. They were great, but they had flaws. They're simply easily accessible by kids. You grow up and you find out more, you learn more about it, and those lessons that they were trying to teach you, there was still the overall message and everything in context. And now I'm just rambling. Did any of that make sense? Did any of that make sense? All right, cut to the next bit. Look, I told you we'd be back on this. International Edition. They've put a sticker over the Target exclusive. Admiral McCoy still in pack. Oh yeah, these are re-release Mego figures. A couple of Klingons and a Borg. Well, Borg's technically not a re-release, but quarter scale Captain Kirk. He's only missing a single piece. And he's a bit rough, he needs a bit of a clean. Wait, was there a thing? But what do I press?
This is Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Enterprise, this is Kirk.
I know that.
Captain's log, stardate 5431.4. Space, the final frontier.
Wait a second. He doesn't fit in there by like 2 centimeters. That is so trash. That is so bloody trash. What time is it? Oh, eBay. It's late. This is for another time. Yeah, I reckon I might be good for now, but I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Of course, always there's one more thing I need to actually do with that. I've been a Star Trek fan for nearly 35 years, something like that. But as I said earlier, my collecting began very late, only a few years ago. Like everything else in this collection, it really did explode. I think it started with that first phaser that I found at the Mega Toy Fair. It was actually for Star Trek Insurrection mint in box. It's still mint in box, I just found another one loose to put up there. And as I keep saying, this isn't all of it. Some of it's in storage, but also, as a side note, there's a very specific section dedicated to the good Captain Jean-Luc Picard. I will go more into that next time. This sort of rearranging and reorganizing happens every 5 to 6 months for me. Some of it is out of practical necessity. Stuff just builds up and I need to decide what to display and what not to display. Sometimes it's a bit mental health as well. You got to clear the clutter in your house to clear the clutter in your mind and all that sort of mindful nonsense that actually works. So what you're going to notice is it's a bit like one of those sliding tile puzzles. You shift one tile and then you got to shift another tile into that gap, and you keep going until you have a complete coherent picture. Well, that's what I have here now. I've got an empty space for a new tile. Actually, I've got my work cut out for me because this LED strip is now gone out, so I have to figure that out. So, and that's the case. Things are going to move from one section to another, and eventually, by the end of it, whether it takes a few more weeks or something, it's going to be something satisfactory and comfortable and tidy and clean. There's a sense of relief to get this Star Trek cabinet all done and expanded from what it was too.